Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Glow Within Vibes. Today, I'm going to share my shopping day with you while we learn the simple past tense. Just relax, listen carefully, and enjoy the story. If you're ready, let's begin. I woke up early. It was the weekend, and I had planned a shopping trip. I wanted to buy everything I needed before the supermarket became crowded. I felt excited because it was going to be a wonderful day. I checked my shopping list. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything important. Everything was written clearly, so I felt confident and well prepared. I picked up my handbag. I put my wallet, my phone, and my shopping list inside it. Then I checked everything one last time. Now I was ready to leave. I locked the door. I checked the handle to make sure it was secure. Safety was always important to me. Then I turned around with a smile. I left my home. The cool morning air felt fresh and pleasant. The streets looked calm and peaceful. My shopping adventure had finally begun. I walked to the bus stop. The weather was beautiful, and a gentle breeze made the walk even more enjoyable. Before long, I reached the bus stop. I waited for the bus. A few people were already standing there. Everyone looked relaxed. After a few minutes, the bus arrived. I boarded the bus. I greeted the driver with a smile and stepped inside. The bus was clean and comfortable. Then I looked for a seat. I found a seat. I chose the window seat because I loved watching the view outside. The journey had just begun. I enjoyed the ride. Trees, buildings, and busy streets passed by the window. Everything looked beautiful in the morning sunlight. Before long, the supermarket came into view. I got off near the supermarket. I looked around for a moment. The supermarket was just across the road. I felt happy because I had finally arrived. I crossed the road carefully. I waited for the traffic light to turn green. The cars stopped, and I walked safely across the road. Soon, I reached the entrance. I entered the supermarket. The automatic glass doors opened in front of me. The store looked bright, clean, and beautifully organized. I smiled because everything looked so welcoming. I picked up a shopping basket. I knew I had many things to buy. The basket felt light in my hands. Then I started looking around the store. I looked around the store. Every aisle was neatly arranged. Colorful signs made everything easy to find. After looking around, I walked toward the vegetable section. I walked to the vegetable section. Fresh vegetables were displayed everywhere. Everything looked colorful and fresh. I wondered which vegetables I should buy first. I selected fresh tomatoes. I picked the brightest and freshest ones. They looked juicy and delicious. I carefully placed them in my basket. I chose crisp cucumbers. I checked each one carefully before buying it. They looked fresh and healthy. I happily added them to my basket. I picked fresh carrots. Their bright orange color immediately caught my attention. I selected the best ones from the display. My basket slowly became heavier. I compared different vegetables. I checked their freshness and quality before making my final choice. I wanted to buy the best vegetables for the week. After making my decision, I continued shopping. I placed the vegetables in my basket. The basket looked more colorful now. I felt happy because I had chosen fresh vegetables. Then I walked toward the fruit section. I walked to the fruit section. The sweet smell of fresh fruit filled the air. Everything looked bright and inviting. I couldn't wait to choose my favorite fruits. I picked fresh apples. I looked for the shiniest ones. They felt fresh and firm. I carefully placed them in my basket. I selected sweet oranges. Their bright color immediately caught my attention. I gently checked each one before buying it. They looked juicy and delicious. I chose ripe bananas. They were perfectly yellow and ready to eat. I picked a fresh bunch and added it to my basket. My shopping was going very well. I compared different grapes. There were green grapes and purple grapes. I looked at both carefully before making my choice. Finally, I picked the freshest bunch. I picked a box of strawberries. They looked bright red and smelled wonderful. I checked the box carefully to make sure every strawberry was fresh. Then I placed it into my basket. I checked the fruit quality. I always liked to buy fresh and healthy food. Every fruit looked perfect. That made me feel satisfied with my choices. I placed the fruits in my basket. The basket was almost full now. All the colorful fruits looked beautiful together. Next, I walked to the dairy section. The cool air from the refrigerators felt refreshing. The shelves were neatly arranged with many dairy products. I started looking for milk. I opened the refrigerator door. A cool breeze came from inside. Everything was well organized and easy to find. I looked carefully at the different products. I picked up a bottle of milk. The bottle felt cold in my hands. It looked fresh and perfect for breakfast. I placed it carefully in my basket. I checked the expiration date. I always like to make sure the products were fresh. The date looked good. That gave me peace of mind. I chose a pack of butter. I compared a few different brands before making my decision. Finally, I picked the one I usually bought. Then I added it to my basket. I picked a cup of yogurt. There were many delicious flavors to choose from. I selected my favorite flavor with a smile. It was the perfect addition to my shopping. I closed the refrigerator door. Everything I needed from the dairy section was already in my basket. I looked at my shopping list once more to make sure I hadn't missed anything. Then I walked toward the bakery section. The wonderful smell of freshly baked bread filled the air. Everything looked warm and delicious. I couldn't wait to choose something fresh. I picked a loaf of bread. It looked soft and freshly baked. The golden crust looked perfect. I gently placed it into my basket. I selected fresh croissants. They looked flaky, buttery, and delicious. It was difficult to choose because they all looked amazing. Finally, I picked my favorite ones. I added the bakery items to my basket. My basket was almost full now. I smiled because everything looked perfect. Next, I walked to the beverage section. The shelves were filled with colorful drinks of every kind. There were fruit juices, sparkling water, soft drinks, and many other beverages. I started looking for orange juice. I picked a bottle of orange juice. It was my favorite drink. The bottle felt cold because it had just come from the refrigerator. I carefully placed it into my basket. I compared different fruit juices. Some had no added sugar, while others came in exciting flavors. I read a few labels before making my choice. Then I continued shopping. I picked a pack of mineral water. I knew it was always important to stay hydrated. The pack was a little heavy, but I lifted it carefully. Then I placed it into my shopping cart. I walked to the snack aisle. Bright and colorful packages covered every shelf. There were so many delicious snacks to choose from. I wondered which one I should buy first. I picked my favorite cookies. I always enjoyed eating them with a warm cup of tea. The package looked fresh and attractive. I happily placed it into my basket. I chose a bar of dark chocolate. It was one of my favorite treats. I decided to buy it as a small reward for myself. Sometimes a little chocolate made my day even better. I walked to the household section. The shelves were neatly arranged with cleaning products and other household essentials. Everything was easy to find. I looked at my shopping list once again. I picked dishwashing liquid. I compared 2 different brands before making my decision. Then I chose the one I trusted the most. I carefully placed it into my basket. I took a roll of paper towels. They were soft, strong, and very useful. I knew they would come in handy at home. My shopping was almost complete. I checked my shopping list again. I read every item carefully from top to bottom. I smiled because I had bought everything I needed. Now it was finally time to head to the checkout counter. I walked to the checkout counter. I looked around for the shortest line. Luckily, I didn't have to wait very long. Everything was going smoothly. I waited in line. While I was waiting, I looked at the small shelves near the counter. They were filled with chocolates, candies, and chewing gum. I smiled because they always caught my attention. Soon, it was my turn. I pushed my shopping cart forward with a smile. The cashier greeted me warmly. I greeted the cashier back. I placed my groceries on the counter. One by one, I carefully arranged the fruits, vegetables, bread, dairy products, drinks, snacks, and household items. The counter quickly filled up. The cashier scanned the items. I listened to the soft beep each time an item was scanned. Everything happened quickly and smoothly. The total appeared on the screen. I checked the total amount. It was exactly what I expected. I quickly looked at the bill one more time. Everything was correct. I paid for my groceries. I tapped my bank card on the payment machine. The payment was approved within a few seconds. It was fast and convenient. I collected the receipt. I folded it neatly and placed it inside my handbag. It was always good to keep the receipt just in case. Then I thanked the cashier. I packed my groceries into reusable shopping bags. I placed the heavier items at the bottom and the lighter items on top. That made the bags easier to carry. Everything fit perfectly. I thanked the cashier. She smiled and wished me a wonderful day. I thanked her again for her kindness. Then I picked up my shopping bags. I left the supermarket. The warm afternoon sunshine welcomed me outside. I took a deep breath and smiled. It had been a successful shopping trip. I walked to the bus stop. The shopping bags felt a little heavy, but I didn't mind. I was happy because I had bought everything on my list. Before long, I reached the bus stop. I waited for the bus. A gentle breeze made the afternoon even more pleasant. A few people were waiting quietly nearby. Soon, the bus arrived. I boarded the bus. The driver greeted me with a friendly smile. I thanked him and stepped inside carefully. Then, I found a comfortable seat. I enjoyed the ride home. I looked out the window and watched the busy streets pass by. People were walking, children were playing, and the city looked full of life. The journey felt relaxing. I got off near my home. I carefully carried my shopping bags with me. My neighborhood looked peaceful and quiet. It felt good to be back. I walked home. The flowers in the gardens looked beautiful. Birds were singing in the trees. I enjoyed every step of the walk. I unlocked the door. I stepped inside with a smile. Home always felt warm and comfortable after a long day. I was glad to be back. I placed the shopping bags on the kitchen counter. It felt nice to finally put them down. I was ready to unpack everything. My kitchen smelled fresh and welcoming. I unpacked the groceries. I took everything out one item at a time. I wanted to keep everything neat and organized. It was easier to find things that way. I put the fruits into the fruit basket. The colorful apples, oranges, bananas, grapes, and strawberries looked beautiful together. The basket made the kitchen look even brighter. I placed the vegetables in the refrigerator. I arranged the tomatoes, cucumbers, and carrots neatly on the shelves. everything stayed fresh and organized. I put the milk, butter, and yogurt in the refrigerator. I made sure everything was in the right place. Keeping food fresh was always important to me. I stored the bread and snacks in the kitchen cabinet. Everything fit perfectly. My kitchen looked tidy and organized again. I washed my hands. It felt refreshing after carrying all the shopping bags. Then I dried my hands with a clean towel. I made myself a warm cup of tea. The gentle aroma filled the kitchen. I couldn't wait to relax after such a productive day. I sat down on the sofa with my cup of tea. I took a deep breath and enjoyed the peaceful moment. Shopping was finished and everything was organized. I felt happy and proud of everything I had done today. Thank you for joining me on my shopping day. I hope you enjoyed learning the simple past tense through this story. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep believing in yourself. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Glow Within Vibes. I'll see you in the next lesson. Goodbye, and have a wonderful day.